Hello, everyone. Welcome to Garden State Greenlight, a podcast by ROI-NJ, examining the business, policy, and economic forces shaping New Jersey's film and television industry. I'm your host, Thomas Phillip, multimedia journalist for ROI-NJ, as well as a filmmaker, writer, producer, director, editor, and performer. And I'm incredibly excited to bring you this episode. Today's guest is Janice Kovach, the mayor of Clinton, New Jersey, and a commissioner with the New Jersey Motion Picture and Television Commission. She's also a past president of the New Jersey State League of Municipalities. And beyond public service, Janice is the host of My Town on RVN TV, a program that gives elected officials a platform to share what's happening in their communities while helping residents better understand local government, the decisions that affect them, and how to stay informed. She is also a TEDx speaker and a passionate advocate for the economic development, community engagement, and the growing role of film and television production in New Jersey. Janice, thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So before we get into the film aspects, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you go from public service to becoming involved with New Jersey's film industry?
It goes back to high school. I wanted to be an actress in high school, and I had a theater teacher tell me I couldn't sing, dance, or act, so I needed to find another career. Politics gives me the stage and the platform, and I don't have to be anyone but me.
Wonderful.
And I've always loved politics. It's always been something that's very interesting to see how work that gets done actually has an impact on someone's life. I come from the corporate world where I started my career, and there it was the bottom line. It was about the shareholders and making sure that they had some sort of a revenue generation. When you get into politics or public service, because it really, you see the work that you do and the impact that you can have, and even if it's positively impacting one person, it's you've done your job.
That's right. And how did you eventually find your way into the film commission as a film commissioner?
So I have been asking probably for 10 years now to get onto the film commission. I started, obviously under the Christie administration, making the ask, and continued through the Phil Murphy administration. And so just a little bit of background, my husband is on the finance side of the entertainment space. So I knew a lot of individuals out in LA. I've spent time out there with him. Even though I wasn't on the commission, I was still always promoting New Jersey because ultimately it's a benefit to everyone here. And I asked a couple of individuals in LA to send a letter to the governor because there was an opening on the commission and I wanted that seat. So you have
Now,
to ask for it. You have to take it.
that's right. Now, was there a particular moment when you realized film production could be an economic driver for communities?
I think I've always understood the benefit of what it is. As a mayor of a small town, my small businesses struggle every day. And we saw it with the pandemic, how they managed to come out on the other side. I mean, we were lucky in that our businesses continued to survive. I don't want to say thrive because I think the pandemic made it difficult to thrive, but they came out on the other side in the positive light. And I think that is so important to our towns in New Jersey, and knowing that when a production comes in, they're not bringing everything with them.
Hmm.
And we don't think about some of the economics of what they need. It could be signs, getting signs printed. We've seen a production that came in and bought $20,000 of balloons for one production for one day. That is significant. Coffee shops, sub shops, sandwich shops, whatever it may be. These are all businesses that are benefiting from the entertainment space coming into Jersey.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about how your role as mayor and your role as a film commissioner intersect. How do these two roles complement each other?
It's interesting. The commissioner role, there's not really a defined role for us to play. We are a board that we meet quarterly. We have there's a staff of the film commission, executive director, and he's got a team of individuals that really do the day to day. I think what I was able to bring to the table is my 20 years in New Jersey government. I have connections, as former president of the league, I know a lot of the mayors. I can make an introduction to a mayor, or production wants to come in, and they want to have a conversation with a mayor because what they want to do is probably a little bit larger than what a municipality might be ready for. I mean, you think about Spielberg when he came in with Disclosure Day. That was
Right.
a big production. And, being able to kind of pull the mayors together and give them a sense of, yes, it's the circus, we understand that, but they also understand that they're now guests in your community and they want to be good guests. So I'm able to kind of help both sides understand, productions understand there are limitations to what a town can do. And for the town, understanding, what the production can do for them coming in. So it's been interesting. I speak English, but I actually speak production and government. So it's being able to kind of marry those two worlds. It's something I enjoy doing. I love fixing things. I love challenging problems or opportunities, maybe not problems. So I try to use that as the basis of how I kind of move forward with everything.
Yeah, it helps to be multilingual in those areas for sure.
Right? It's
Um,
the closest I'm going to come to being multilingual.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So has serving as mayor changed the way you think about attracting productions?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I understand what limitations we have in municipalities. It was interesting when productions first started to come, they're used to being in LA. They're not used to coming into a state with 564 municipalities and 21 counties and a state government. And each entity has its own set of rules about how you do something. It can be overwhelming. So understanding how each of those pieces works really makes the connection with the production that much easier. I see the struggles that towns have, and this is not productions coming into your community is not going to be how you balance your budget, but it could be how your small business community is going to benefit. And we've seen a production go use for 30 days filming in Cranford. They went to the same sandwich place every day because the director loved the sandwich place. It's 30 days of feeding a crew and cast, which is significant. So, looking at it from that perspective, I think is really important.
Absolutely. Now, for people who aren't familiar, what does a film commissioner actually do? What is your day-to-day like?
So my day to day depends on which productions are in town. We've got a couple that are working in New Jersey right now, and dealing with a driving scene, dealing with filming on a farm. We've also had productions that are filming in our more urban communities in Jersey City and Newark, Hoboken. So it could run the gamut of the director would like the grass cut on this piece of roadway, and it's usually done by the county. Can we do it? So it's calling the county to say, are you okay if the production actually cuts the grass? Which I'm sure most DPW would be like, hey, if that's less grass I have to cut, go for it. But you just want to make sure that you're not overstepping or doing something that shouldn't be done because it needs to be done a certain way.
Are there certain types of films that require, I guess, I don't know, more attention than others? Anything
Yeah,
like that? Yeah.
there's not a set framework that says this one needs more. Sometimes the smaller productions, which have less of a budget, will need a little bit more help because they're not able to throw money at locations. So, it's navigating that and negotiating and helping them, again, helping them understand that you're going to impact a community and there is a cost to that, and you've got to cover whatever that cost is. And then you've got larger ones, for anyone that hasn't seen Disclosure Day. I mean, it was in the trailer, the train scene. That was a significant amount of work. We spent probably 3 or 4 months before they even came in, just kind of navigating that and negotiating it and getting, because it crossed multiple communities, making sure all of the mayors were on board because, Steven Spielberg was going to be in town, and this is going to be big. This is going to be something that we needed to make sure it went smoothly for everyone, for the production as well as for the community.
What are kind of the typical conversations you're having with municipalities or production companies, for situations like the one you're describing?
So with the towns, what we try to do is bring everyone to the table before the production's ready. as they're coming in and doing the scouting, we try to bring someone from the production team to the mayors or to their business administrators or whoever they designate as their point person to kind of talk through, and I'll go back to Disclosure Day. It was filmed down in South Jersey, which does not see a lot of filming. The Woodbine, Upper Township, Weymouth, Dorothy, those areas are not, you know, they're rural communities. So we brought everyone to the table so that they could understand each of the pieces. What they understood was, yes, this is going to be a little bit of an inconvenience, but there's going to be 350 people in 8 different hotels off season in South Jersey, which is going to be an economic boon for those communities that wouldn't normally see something like that. On the production side, it's all right, this is what you need to understand about the community that you're coming into. It is rural. They don't have a lot of full-time staff. It's not like working in a Jersey City or Newark or a Hoboken where there is staff there to kind of handle and help with everything. These are volunteers in most cases. Elected officials for the most part don't get paid, or if they do, it's a small stipend. They're doing this because it's something that they want to do and they care about. They also want to see their community on the big screen. It's pretty exciting to go to a movie and say, oh yeah, that's the train down Cape May shorelines. That is where we were down in the Cape May County area. We were down in Atlantic County. All those pieces were it's exciting to be able to see it and to have mayors then watch the movies and go, yeah, that's my town. It's just this overwhelming, cool feeling.
Absolutely. I would love to know a little bit more why mayors and local officials across the state should care about attracting film and television productions, maybe even more so than, seeing the town on the screen. Why else would that be attractive to them?
Ultimately it's about your small business community and if you don't have small businesses in your town, the surrounding business community. It's also hiring, New Jersey residents. A lot of the productions bring on New Jersey residents. I think the number IATSE members, 70% of the IATSE members, or not IATSE, Teamsters, live in New Jersey. You've got, 40% of the crew that used to work in New York lives in New Jersey. These are people that now don't have to cross the river to go to work and are able to come home. So you have your own community members that are benefiting by having these jobs and getting these opportunities. And again, your business community is really, and honestly, we all have egos and we'd love to see our towns on the silver screen.
Absolutely. Who wouldn't? What are some of the biggest misconceptions towns have about hosting productions?
The circus is coming, and it's controlled chaos. There's an expectation sometimes if a production comes in and says, we want to film Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this time frame, and then they've heard stories where productions come back and say, okay, we need to change the time frame, and now we need to go outside the scope of what you normally allow. So there's that kind of fear of the unknown. Once you've hosted one and you've kind of cut your teeth on it, you're understanding what to expect. And that's one of the reasons we do the Film Ready program. It's a what to expect when you're expecting is probably the best way to describe it. So, what you should know, what you should ask. If they want to use your municipal building for a location, then, you need to benefit from that. You need to let them know what that cost is going to be. And then the production makes the decision. Is it something they can afford? Is it something they can't? And they move forward from there. So it really is, it's the unknown. I think more and more towns are coming on board because they understand the benefit and they see the excitement around it. No one wants to be left out.
And what are some things that, mayors should expect when they're expecting a production to come into town?
Um, they should probably expect for some asks outside the box. Uh, you know, Intermittent traffic control is usually the big one. And when they don't have, if town doesn't have their own police department, they've got to, go through outside hiring to make sure that they've got officers to do traffic control. Understanding, residents. One of the things I always tell mayors is make sure when a production, if they've not spoken to us first, they've come directly to you. Make sure you're asking them, did you talk to all the neighbors? I ask productions to get sign off from the neighbors, if especially if there's going to be an impact. If you're going to be working in a neighborhood where people park their cars, their kids are going to school, you don't think about trash pickup. You impact trash pickup, and now I've got my trash sitting for another week. How do we make sure that we're not impacting their everyday lives, that they're going to benefit from this as well? And it's not always financially. Some productions have brought in ice cream trucks for neighbors. The kids all love that.
Right.
They'll make donations to, we had one production that made a donation to a block party.
Mm.
Things like that are meaningful because it's not just throwing money at them, but it's understanding what our community is. And when productions know that, that's when it's a really good relationship.
Mm. Right. And I'm sure some of the adults would appreciate an ice cream truck every now and again too. I know I
I
would.
love a good ice cream truck. I am never saying no to ice cream.
I know. I'm always trying to listen to for the
Yeah.
music in my neighborhood, just in case, you never know. But it's getting
I
to be
still
that
have them
way.
coming around Clinton, so
All right.
I
Yeah,
go running, believe me.
I'll have to stop by Clinton then. So,
Yes.
um, what would you say to a mayor who might be hesitant about opening their community to production?
And we've had some communities that have been like that, especially like right now we're in the summertime and the shore towns are, shore towns that have what, 5,000 people grow to 50,000 people. And now you want to throw a production and they get a little nervous about it. And I don't blame them. We do try to make sure productions understand that there are certain areas at certain times of the year that really make no sense. If you're just doing a 1 day shot, crew of 20 people, maybe something like that's easy. You can't come in with 300 people and expect to shut down roads or impact communities that are out there. So we always try to make sure that when we're talking to towns, what are your hard stops? Like where do you say we can't accommodate that? And as long as it's known up front, it's much easier to navigate. What hurts both sides is when you're going down the road and there's an expectation that you're going to get to a yes, and then the production's just spent 2 weeks or something, and all of a sudden it's a no. So, how do we ensure that we're getting the answers early on? And if it's a no, it's a no. There are times when we've had towns that have been inundated with productions, and we understand they're now at that point where they need a break. So we'll say to production that looks at, I'll use Cranford as an example. There was one summer they had 3 productions going on at one time, and it was a little bit overwhelming for the community. The next one that came in, they were like, "Oh, we'd love to go to Cranford." Like, you know what? Look at Scotch Plains, look at Fanwood. You're going to get that same look and feel as you do in Cranford. We're giving them a break. They're not saying no, but they've just been inundated and they need that break. And that's really probably the biggest part of these is that communication and making sure the commission understands what the constraints may be, and then the productions understand as well. And you know they may not get exactly what they want if they're going to push to be in a community that where they'd make the decision.
Right. And what do you think it is about, towns in New Jersey? What do we have to offer that, productions can't find elsewhere?
We have everything.
Hmm.
I mean, you think about it, you can go from High Point in the mountains to Cape May and the beach. You get the highest and the lowest points of the state. You've got you can in 40 minutes you can go from the mountains to the beach. You can go from urban to suburban to rural farmland. We can play almost anything. We've got, in the northern part of New Jersey, you've got farms that can be the rolling hill farms of the Swiss Alps. You've got South Jersey, which can be the Nebraskas and the plains states. Um, we've got anything and everything you could possibly need, including a desert. So whatever you want New Jersey to play, we can play Eastern Europe. Europe. Patterson has played. I forget one of the productions. The mayor saying they played 3 different countries in one
Wow.
building.
Yeah,
So we've got the architecture. We've been around for a long time, so we've got a lot of different things that they can look at and find.
absolutely. I would love to talk a little bit about how the film industry has grown. It's grown so much drastically over the last couple of years. From your perspective, what is driving that momentum?
I think initially it is the tax incentive, right? Everyone's looking for ways that they can cut the cost of their filming while still keeping something that is significant and someone wants to go see in the movies. We've seen the struggle of productions getting into the theaters and getting the showings that they need because everyone's got streaming. Everyone, you can see it on your TV. Why would I pay to go to a movie theater?
Right.
Other than the big blockbusters, you're watching so much on your TV or on your phone for that matter.
Right.
But the incentive is definitely the kind of that first hook. Um, and I think the second hook is the fact that the commission staff really goes above and beyond. It's a concierge service. Whatever, however much the production needs from the commission, they're there to provide. And whether or not, if they don't need any assistance, that's fine. If whatever assistance you need, it's here. And it showed last year when the New Jersey Film Commission won Best Film Commission in the world at the Location Managers Guild International because of the work that was done on A Complete Unknown. They've been nominated again this year for Deliver Me from Nowhere, the Bruce Springsteen biopic. So, you know, that says something that the locations teams are recognizing it's easy to do business in New Jersey. So the incentive is definitely that hook, but you need to make it easy enough to do business in the state for them to want to come back multiple times. And New Jersey did it right. The initial rollout of the tax incentive, it wasn't just we threw everything at them immediately. It was a slow roll, just to kind of test the waters to see what worked and what didn't work. And then you've seen it increase each time to where it's at now, where we've got Netflix, Lionsgate, and Paramount that will have stages in New Jersey.
Mm.
That's a significant investment in the state that, once you put shovel in the ground, now they're not going anywhere.
Tax incentives have been huge. What role have infrastructure and local partnerships, what role have those categories played?
Infrastructure, obviously, I mean, that is key to everything, right? So
Right.
New Jersey has a number of stages that are repurposed warehouses. You see it in Kearney. I think we have three purpose-built stages, and that's the Cinelli stages in Jersey City. But you have all of these other stages that have come online. One, because there's a need, and two, we've got that infrastructure. They can work around the warehousing. So you've got that. And then you've got the employees. You've got the unions, you've got the Teamsters, you've got the crew, you've got everything here. And more are moving to New Jersey because they're beginning to see that this is an opportunity. It's you saw it in Georgia when they rolled everything out. Everyone went to Georgia. People moved their lives, their families, everything to be there. And I think you're going to see the same thing. The benefit of Jersey is you can still do work in New York. You can still do work in Philadelphia. And you can still do work in Toronto if that's the case. It's easy access. We're a transportation hub on top of it. So getting anywhere is, a couple hours of flying.
New Jersey is what now ranked like number three or,
Yeah,
right behind New
you're
York
just
and
about at
California.
three. Yes.
Just about, yeah. So what needs to happen or what needs to continue to happen in order for New Jersey to continue to compete with LA, New York, Georgia?
I think we just need to continue doing what we're doing. We need to be open. We need to be available. We need to be responsive. We need to, obviously listen to what production's needs are, but also at the same time make sure that we're not overwhelming our communities or just, shoving anything at them that they can't manage, because that's a recipe for a disaster immediately, right? That's a bad experience on both sides, and now neither side wants to do business again. So making sure that every transitions are smooth, that communications are open. Again, I think the Film Ready is our biggest accomplishment in getting communities ready for a film to come to town. And so Clinton hasn't had a film since Turbulence with Ray Liotta back in the 80s. That was the last time something filmed in Clinton. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. But we're ready. Like our doors are open. We're waiting for that opportunity, and I think eventually it comes, right? Because eventually they're going to start going outside the zone more and more, because there's only so much you can do in the zone. And as more and more productions come in, they need different looks, they need different feels, they need opportunities to kind of come into a community that isn't something they would normally find in someplace else. So, Clinton is a great Midwestern town. You need to play Midwestern town, we're here for you. You want a Hallmark movie? I keep pushing for a Hallmark movie. Clinton's perfect Hallmark movie. But I'm not the only one. I mean, there are so many other communities, and that's really, my goal is to make sure all of the communities have an opportunity to be a part of this new industry.
Right. And do you think, are there any gaps you'd like to see filled in order to, help the state continue to compete?
Um, there probably are. I mean, we're starting to do it with, working with the different state departments. DCA has been a big partner with us, um, because obviously Division of Codes is there, Division of Fire Safety is there. So there's always those interactions, especially when they're dealing with state properties. DEP has been a huge partner because all of the state parks that everyone wants to film in. We've got these amazing locations, and we need to be able to make sure that the state partners are just as on board, because this is outside their scope of what their job is. They're not, hired to be location managers or help productions navigate. So we really work closely with them to make sure that we're helping them understand, again, what to expect when they're expecting. And I think you're going to see that start more and more. We're seeing farms use, so dealing with the SADC and making sure they understand, and their farming community is open and willing to take on these productions.
Right, right. So let's look ahead a little bit. As
Sure.
more studios come online and more productions, are choosing New Jersey, what opportunities are exciting you the most?
I think first and foremost is seeing more and more communities have that opportunity. That to me, in this and the small business community, when you talk to them and you hear how excited they are about it, that to me is probably the most important. Um, Showcasing our state. We've always had this bad rap of I've traveled, and someone's like, oh, Jersey Shore. I'm like, yeah, they're not from Jersey. Or the Real Housewives. That's not who we are as a state. Yeah, we all have an attitude, and we are proud of who we are being from Jersey, but there's so much more to what we are and who we are, and to see that shine through is, I think, really exciting for me.
Now, looking 5 or 10 years into the future, what do you hope New Jersey's film industry looks like?
I hope it continues to grow. I hope, getting to number one or number two, I think is going to be hard. We may compete with New York for a number two spot, kind of may go back and forth. I think a lot of it depends. Again, that part of it is the incentive piece of it. If New York increases their incentives, they may pull a little bit more back. Um, but I think staying in the range where we're at, we're not overwhelming anyone. We're trying to balance what comes in and what we can handle, and looking at it saying, yeah, this is something, we want to see more go down to South Jersey. Absolutely. South Jersey, there's so many opportunities there, and to know that we've got all of that infrastructure there and iconic locations. So I'd like to see more down there, and that'll happen again. I think once Netflix comes on, you'll see that the move where it's easier to travel throughout the state and not stay within the zone so much. Um, and I think we're going to continue to, fight for our role and our place, because we're scrappy like that. We are not a suburb of New York, regardless of what New York seems to think. We are our own entity, and we're going to shine brightly.
Absolutely. Now, I still feel, even though there's so much going on in the film industry in New Jersey, I still feel it's sort of in its infancy right now, despite it being, still flourishing. What does a thriving, healthy film industry look like to you?
It's the stages that are built. It is the individuals employed by the studios and seeing more and more New Jersey residents. It right now does feel insular because I'll talk to people and they're like, "Really, we've got films happening in New Jersey?" I'm like, "How do you not know? Like, it's all over social media." But again, it's kind of like politics, right? Like I pay attention to what's going on, but
Mhm.
not everyone does. So I
Yeah.
think the more we can talk about it, the more we can get it mainstream and get people excited about it. And people who wouldn't normally talk about it. So someone who maybe rented their house for a production, them getting excited and talking to their friends. Like that's how we're going to get that word of mouth and really grow the industry and see it thrive and flourish in New Jersey is getting everyone engaged, not just, I've had kids say, well, there's no opportunities. I'm like, there's going to be.
Mhm.
Just be patient and volunteer. There's festivals all over New Jersey. The best way to meet anyone is to work at some of these festivals. It's an opportunity. Look for any of the networking that goes on. You may think that it's small, but guess what? You never know who's going to be there. And you never know what those conversations are going to be or where they're going to be 5 years from now and they remember you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember being at the film expo where we saw each other, and
Right.
I just feel like there was a huge enthusiasm for
Yes.
the film industry in general, and that was just really nice to see.
It is. People are so excited. Everyone, I was just talking to someone else. Everyone's like, oh, this is so exciting. All these actors. I'm like, keep in mind, these are jobs for people, right? Like, you think what you see on the screen, that's one thing, but they're working 12, 14-hour days to get those scenes.
Yeah.
Those are long days. I've spent time on some of the sets and I see what goes on. Sometimes it's a lot of standing around, sometimes it's a lot of doing that same scene over and over and over again. So the glamour of the red carpet, yes, there's no glamour in the work that has to be done every single day, the 12, 14-hour days that these people are putting in. And that's significant. Like it is and as people start to see it when they see it happening locally, we've been in some of the homes that have been rented out and the owners are like, wow, this is a lot of work. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but these are people who are working, who are paying taxes now, who are, part of a community. Overall, it benefits the state of New Jersey. And I think even elected officials are starting to see that, even at the legislature, because we try to make sure that they see the benefits to their districts. That, we took Senator Testa was down on set with Steven Spielberg, and he saw 350 people staying in 8 hotels at 200 and some dollars a week. That was significant.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's just great to see so many people excited that this is happening.
Yeah.
It really is. So for someone who's listening to this conversation and who's interested in working in the film industry in New Jersey, whether they're a student, business owner, local official, what advice would you give them?
So if they're a business owner, they should get on our New Jersey 411 database. So our production services database, and it's not just tied directly to production. So it could be a garbage company, it could be a sign company, it could be restaurants, food trucks, whatever it may be. If you've got a service that a film can use, make sure you're up on our database. You just have to be a New Jersey based business. It's the best thing. If you're an aspiring actor, background actor, we are going to have, I don't think it's up yet, but there will be a New Jersey actors portal. So, you'll be able to put up your information. So some of the background agencies can go there to look to see, as they're looking for specifics. Also on social media, all of the postings for background actors are all over Facebook. When Adam Sandler was doing Happy Gilmore 2, I think 5,000 people descended on Morristown at the Hyatt Hotel for background. Um, I made sure I called the mayor, let him know he was going to have 5,000 people descending on him. But something like that. And then we also have locations database. So if someone's got a home or a business and things you wouldn't normally think of, if you've got even an old gas station, put these locations up on our database because what they're looking for, you wouldn't necessarily think is a set, but it could be for that particular movie.
Got it. A lot of fantastic resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we're going to end on this one. So finally, what's one thing about New Jersey's film industry that you wish more people understood?
That the economic benefit to the small business community. I don't think I can say that enough. It really is significant when businesses have an income that they wouldn't normally have because the productions come to town. And I go back to the coffee shops and the sub sandwich shops or the balloon company, dry cleaning, Uber drivers, all of these pieces. These are all benefits to our local economies.
Janice, I think that's all I have for you. So I really appreciate you coming by and having this discussion. This was fantastic.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.